If you want to hear my 2 fan theories about the upcoming movie Glass, then stick around to the end of this video. I just watched the trailer for Glass. This has got to be my most anticipated movie of all time. If this movie's good, this could be the greatest trilogy ever. So as you can imagine, I've got a lot to talk about here. Please do yourself a favor, make sure you've seen these movies before you watch this video. The trailer opens by introducing us to Dr. Ellie Staple, a psychiatrist who specializes in individuals who believe that they are superheroes. Now in Split, there's a psychiatrist named Dr. Fletcher who works with the Horde. One of the many personalities asked Dr. Fletcher what would happen to them if she were to pass away, and this is her response.
If ever something were to happen to me, I've made arrangements with a colleague from Baltimore to take over.
What if this Dr. Staple is the colleague from Baltimore? The name of the asylum, as seen on this name tag later in the trailer, is Ravenhill Memorial. Baltimore was the home of Edgar Allan Poe, who wrote the famous poem, The Raven. And of course the NFL team, the Ravens, reside there. But this movie does, like almost all of Shyamalan's films, including Split and Unbreakable, take place in Philadelphia. Next, we see some shots from around the asylum, including this one from Kevin's room. You can tell because of the 24 toothbrushes. Also, at the beginning of the shot, the lights are off and all we can see are these 3 panes of glass. That could come to represent the 3 main characters. Not long after, we are shown those 3 characters, all together in the same room. Perhaps the most shocking part, though, is that David Dunn is the only one who's chained up. The big question is going to be, what did he do to become a criminal? This could be a situation similar to The Incredibles, where his acts of heroism also cause damage, because he does kind of just walk into people's houses uninvited. Later in the trailer, this appears to be his arrest scene, and then later on, he seems to be surrendering, and the removal of his raincoat is a symbol of him showing weakness during his arrest, because in Unbreakable, water is essentially his kryptonite. There's also this woman who's holding up stop signs, possibly David's wife, or possibly Dr. Staple. Back to the shot though, I'm guessing that Elijah simply doesn't need to be chained up because he isn't a physical threat. But if they've now captured the Horde, you'd think that he would be chained up as well. Pay attention to the order that they're sitting in, because in the next shot, there's some books propped up in the comic book store. The Legion of Regrettable Supervillains is the book on the left, and the League of Regrettable Superheroes is on the right. And there's something in the middle, I can't tell what book it is, but it probably represents the Horde. There's also something off to the side here. If the bad guys are teaming up in this movie, maybe David teams up with a new character as well. For the record, I don't consider Kevin to be a bad guy, but out of the 24 personalities that reside in his body, at least 3 of them are bad, and I think that's what Elijah's referring to when he says that line about the bad guys teaming up. This scene is very reminiscent of the comic book store scene in Unbreakable, where Elijah has the epiphany about David Dunn having a weakness. The character in the comic that he's looking at has a resemblance to the Beast, the 24th personality in Split, but with hair. This panel of him bending the bars is just like the Beast bending the bars of the cage at the end of Split. And just to break down this page, these 2 are in some kind of danger when the Beast guy comes in and grabs the bars. He says, "What they've done to us is unforgivable. I vowed to protect everyone from something." It's too blurry to read at that point. But then he breaks through the bars and the villain says, "Time for me to get out of here." And the Beast goes after these yellow eyes in the dark. And his last quote is, "I don't know how much longer I can keep chasing him." I think it's likely that we'll see a scene similar to this in Glass. Perhaps the character in the comic doesn't represent the Beast, but rather David Dunn. If that's the case, maybe him breaking out of the bars corresponds to this, and "I don't know how much longer I can keep chasing him" refers to him getting older. Before we move on from this page of comics, they cut the trailer to make it look like Elijah Price is the one reading the comic, but I don't think those are his hands. Okay, this shot shows David Dunn in a diner/casino, and because I know people are gonna ask, no, it's not the same diner from at the end of Split. There is, however, a news report on the screen showing something going on at Osaka Tower, which I'm guessing is supposed to be a building in Osaka, Japan. So I think Mr. Glass is up to his old tricks again once he inevitably escapes. Next shot, David bumps into this guy, whose face we can't see at first. After a quick flashback of these chained up cheerleaders, we see that it's Kevin, or at least one of the personalities, but which one? It could be Dennis, who's stated in Split to have a thing for watching young girls dance naked, but it could be Hedwig, who's the owner of that jacket and loves listening to music. Okay, fine, roll it. Hedwig would probably be the only one to wear his headphones outside of his hood like that, but if that is Hedwig, that means that either Hedwig is complicit like he was in the kidnapping of the girls in Split, or David can see the actions of the entire Horde by bumping into Kevin's body. By the way, the position that the girls are chained up in almost looks to be a callback to the way that the janitor tied up those girls in Unbreakable. In Glass, we'll get to see a bunch of new personalities that had files in the computer in Split, but who never actually made an appearance in the light. such as Mary Reynolds.
I'm Mary Reynolds.
Someone who speaks Spanish.
Por favor, señora.
And apparently Logan Paul.
We almost got you, bro.
When Mr. Glass is talking about his brittle bone disease, we see this x-ray from July 1999. Now, Unbreakable came out in 2000 and could take place in 99. This could be the very same x-ray from that fall down the stairs at the subway. However, I don't think that's the reason that he's still in a wheelchair now, because in Unbreakable, the doctor tells him that he'll be in a wheelchair for a couple months, and then he'll be on crutches after that. Split takes place 15 years after Unbreakable, and I imagine Glass takes place shortly after Split, because there's a brief shot in the trailer where the Beast looks to still have his gunshot wounds from Split. Also, Mr. Glass's crutches do make an appearance at the end of the trailer, so maybe he won't be wheelchair bound for the entirety of the third one. Like some people. There's a brief shot in the trailer of a crowded room with almost no context, but if you pay attention to this sign, you'll notice that it's a train station. Trains are significant in both films. In Unbreakable, it's David's survival of a train accident, or I guess I should say train wreck, that first gets Elijah's attention, and he also searches for criminals by bumping into them at the train station. In Split, the train yard is where Dennis goes to unleash the Beast. And it's also mentioned that the root of his disorder has something to do with his dad leaving on a train when he was very young. Fan theory, I'm gonna say that his dad was on the same train that derailed at the beginning of Unbreakable. This is a very interesting shot. At one point in the trailer, we see Casey from Split reaching out to the Horde. Here, we see her leaving the asylum with Elijah Price's mom from Unbreakable and David Dunn's son, Joseph Dunn, who is all grown up now. Could Joseph possibly be the owner of the comic book shop whose face is conveniently hidden? And as a side note, this character, whoever he is, seems to be making a symbolic choice between heroes and villains. That brings me to fan theory number 2. Roll the clip.
May I meet the Beast?
I hope for your sake that he likes you.
That sounds like the bad guys teaming up.
I think the Beast does end up liking Mr. Glass for the same reason he likes Casey in Split, because he's physically broken, and in the eyes of the Beast, that makes him pure. Unlike David, who is... And speaking of Unbreakable, after this shot where 2 nurses are running away from the asylum and David Dunn can be seen in his raincoat in the background, the trailer ends with imagery of broken glass. Christmas is coming late this year. In January. I mean, technically that's next year, but you get my point. If you are stoked for this movie, if you are ready to complete the Unbreakable trilogy, let me know by leaving this video a like, and let me know your theories about Glass in the comments.
They say this one has a surprise ending.
And finally, if you're interested in seeing things you missed videos on Unbreakable, Split, and Glass, make sure you're subscribed to CZsWorld for new horrors every week. Ring that death bell for notifications, and I'll see you in the next one, assuming we both survive.